Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Everybody, welcome to the Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamy Beckler, and today's guest will be joining us very shortly for the Leaders Growing Leaders series. I want to remind everybody that today's episode is made possible by freeleadershipworkshop.com, freeleadershipworkshop.com. Whether you're a coach, parent, administrator, athlete, there is something to learn. There is something for you at freeleadershipworkshop.com. When the school year starts, we'll be having weekly webinar sessions on various topics. freeleadershipworkshop.com. Joining us today is Dr. Ryan Smith. Dr. Ryan Smith, he is the president of the University of Rio Grande in Ohio. He's also the president of Rio Grande Community College. Dr. Smith, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I do have to correct you because my academics wouldn't appreciate it if I didn't. I'm actually not a doctor. I'm a non-traditional president. So I don't want to offend anybody on the academic side.
Well, that's great. We would hate to get you canceled. We would hate to get you canceled by continuing to go that route. Well, non-traditional route. We've got to talk about that because you've actually non-traditionally. You started off as a financial analyst in the finance world. You went into politics, and now you're in academia. So it does kind of make sense from a non-traditional standpoint. You wouldn't be a doctor, but talk a little bit about your non-traditional path to academia.
So I graduated in 1995 from Ohio State with a degree in finance. I went to work with my father and my uncle in the brokerage business. Was a financial advisor for 23 years. In that business, and enjoyed working with them. Didn't enjoy the bear markets we went through and the challenging times there, but you learn something from everything, and I certainly did there. But in 2012, I ran for the Ohio State House because I was involved in a lot of different things, and the person stepped down, and they asked me to consider running. And I guess I like to say in a weak moment, I said yes, and jumped into an election. I was on the school board at the time, the local school board, so I had a little bit of taste into that, but then joined the Ohio House. Was fortunate enough a couple years in to become the finance chair, which was very insightful. I probably learned more in 8 years in the State House than I did 4 years in Ohio State, for sure, just from the variety of topics we talked about. And became Speaker of the House in Ohio, and then term limits were coming up, and it felt like it was the right time for me to leave. And Rio Grande was in my backyard. It was in my district. My wife was a graduate. It was really struggling. I felt like my contacts could help. And again, maybe a weak moment or a moment of faith, took the leap and gave 2 jobs up and came here. And the rest is kind of history.
Well, very interesting background. Now you're the president of both Rio Grande Community College and University of Rio Grande. One's private, one's public, one's 2-year, one's 4-year. Talk a little bit about the contrast of the two, but how they're synced together, how they're aligned in a common focus, common mission.
Sure. So 1876 was when the university was founded. So we're coming up on 150 years of being a private liberal arts college. Obviously, those have been through good times and bad. We were as low as under 100 in enrollment in the 1950s. And made it through times like that to get to this point. But in 1972, they were that created the state of Ohio, created a lot of community colleges around the state. And they said, if you could pass a tax levy to support your school in those 4 county areas, we will grant you that ability. So rather than go out and build an additional facility, Bob Evans, who many know the restaurants, actually lived very close to here, and his farm's next door that we actually own now. He went to Governor Rhodes and said, put these two together because it will help sustain enrollment long-term for the university, and we can offer the 2-year programming. So that's what happened. 50 some years ago, the community college was brought in, and we have 2 separate boards. We have a public board of 9. We have a private board on the university side, which right now is around 21. And we govern it with really a unified team. We have 14 employees on the community college side, but otherwise everybody else is employed on the university. We share buildings. We put assets. We put money into each other's investments. And it kind of helps us maximize that, but it gives us the ability to offer everything from certificates to 2-year associate degrees to 4-year bachelor's to master's degrees. And it kind of, for the area we serve in a poor area in Southeast Ohio, it gives a lot of opportunity to people that never thought college was a possibility. And they come here and they build a little bit of confidence. Oftentimes they earn associates and go on and earn bachelor's and hopefully beyond that.
Well, it seems like when you're working with institutions, higher education, and especially community college, 4-year schools, there's different maybe motives, different agendas, there's different, goals, those kinds of things. When you think about the success of not only your position, but just in general, when you think of success, is there a metric or a measurement for that? Is there a philosophy that you have that guides you? What do you think of when you think of success?
So for a lot of institutions, and ours is certainly no different, for me, it's enrollment, because enrollment drives everything. We are so dependent on enrollment. We get state dollars through the community college, through state share of instruction. In the state of Ohio, we get a little bit of capital dollars every year as well. But enrollment and tuition drive everything. So to me, success is that first and foremost. That keeps the doors open, but also being able to offer as much as we can to an area that's not experienced as much from an educational standpoint for non-transient people that just won't go otherwise.
So when you took over, Rio Grande looks much different today than it did back in 2019 when you took over. What are some of the things that you put in place? What are some of the things that you did to help grow Rio Grande? Because it seems like every day, I know it's not every day, but it seems like schools are closing, or there's rumors of schools closing at the higher education level. What did you do to grow Rio Grande?
Well, I came in and started evaluating the talent we had here. And a lot of times in institutions or companies, there's a lot of talented people. And the best thing about Rio Grande is we had people that have been here a long time that love Rio Grande. The worst thing about Rio Grande is we had people that had been here a long time. So unless you get eyes from the outside, it's hard to envision different things, right? So we started trying to do some new things. And mind you, I was here in October of 19. So I had 5 months before the pandemic hit, which, in hindsight, probably was a great thing for me. It didn't matter if you were a 40-year experienced president or if you were brand new like me. Nobody had a playbook for that. So we kind of shifted gears and made it work. But, what I've tried to do is look at it from a parent's perspective. I have 4 kids, one already out of college, 2 in college, and 1 in 7th grade. But what do they look for in a college? What makes them come to Southeast Ohio, to the University of Rio Grande Community College? And a lot of times it's the and proposition. They want to get an education and continue to do what they love. And that's either athletics. So we've expanded a tremendous amount on that side, or it's band, or it's our Grand Chorale, which is our singing group. It's opportunity to interact with other students, which is hard when you're a freshman, getting to know somebody and settling in. So I think that's been, without question, we've grown 11 or 12 sports and other programs as well, and that's probably contributed to our growth.
Well, I'm very familiar with your sports programs, doing very well, adding sports, having on the field, on the court success as well, GPA, through the roof, giving people opportunities as well. Speak a little bit, I'm biased. A lot of people that watch this show are in athletics, but speak to the importance of athletics, why that matters. And there's this difference a little bit between, you went to Ohio State. There's a difference between athletics at Ohio State, athletics at Rio Grande, but still there's an importance at both institutions.
Sure. So for us, I mean, athletics is key to a lot of things. First and foremost, what I realized from a faculty representative when I was on a trip for the NAIA, he said, when I was faculty at a school in Michigan, there was always this like antagonistic athletics academics, right? They're just, it's cats and dogs for whatever reason. And I think trying to get people to understand, faculty, that if the student's not showing up and sitting in your classroom, call the coach, because they have a lot of leverage over that person, right? Because they want to compete. So that's helped a lot on the academic side, having merit scholarships, which helps reduce the amount of athletic scholarships that the coaches need. They really push that. So we're aligned really well. And then, just the camaraderie of athletics on a campus, to bring people together, to give them a common goal and a common group to come cheer for, or somebody to cheer against. It's just, it creates that atmosphere that I think you really want.
Well, overall, when we think of coaches, we think of coaches being somebody that can take somebody from where they are to where they need to be. They take their athletes, maybe ability wise, or maybe just, hey, I'm going to help you to do a little bit better in the classroom, or to be a better person for society or community, whatever. They take people from where they are to where they need to be. As a leader, as a president, you're also doing that with your faculty, with your staff, different people like that. Are there some things that you do to intentionally move people to where they need to be, to help people be better, to help situations be better as a leader? How are you developing, growing leadership?
That's a great question. So, when I came, I had the luxury, I suppose, if you want to say this, to come into a situation where it had been struggling. So for them to accept a non-traditional president is hard. To accept somebody who's out of politics is probably even harder. But they just wanted somebody with a plan, right? So coming in and being confident, and I didn't have a plan day one. I was learning, right? I wanted to learn. And one of the faculty sat across from me in the seat across from my desk and said, with all due respect, I like what you're saying. I've just been through 8 people sitting in your seat that said similar things. So for me, it's all about, the proofs in the pudding and walking the walk and doing it. And I think over time, as you do that, I built a lot of, I'll say, trust with people on campus that we're going the right direction, and trying to do that. But it's also about finding the right people to put them in the right places. And we had great people here. They just maybe weren't in the right place for their skill set. I think that's made a big difference.
So you've mentioned politics a number of times. You were in the Ohio House. You were actually Speaker of the House, which is the Grand Poobah, which is the big cheese there in the House of Representatives in Ohio. How did that prepare you to be a president? And a 2-part question: how did that prepare you to be a president, to lead an institution, or actually 2 institutions? But also, what are some differences between politics and maybe leadership, or what you're doing now?
After I got here, I realized pretty quickly, and I kind of laugh about it and say, just God has a sense of humor, because as Speaker of the House, I had 65 Republicans in my caucus that I was leading. When I got here, we had about 62 faculty members. So I say this completely respectfully. I hope it doesn't get taken the wrong way by any faculty, but individually elected people in Ohio House have their own egos because they feel like they earned their way there. And, individually educated faculty members are not that much different. They might see the world differently and maybe don't have all the same leanings, but we used to joke about it being herding cats in the Ohio House, and at times it feels that way. So I think that definitely prepared me from that standpoint, as did, government moves slow. I think higher ed probably moves slower. They're used to having a committee to study this committee and I'm more of a let's go, we don't have time to do this kind of person. So it's been a little bit of a push and pull on that side of things, and I think it's worked out okay. But in a lot of ways, it prepared me for what I was expecting, and I did not see that coming.
Did you ever think that you would be a college president or wanted to get into academia?
No, not at all. I would have paid far greater attention to my higher ed side of things. And when I was finance chair, had I done this, I could have dug in a lot more. But no, I didn't. I've just kind of I've let my faith kind of take me the direction that I felt like it needed to. Even when when I was thinking about the state rep position, I had a growing business, a young family. I had this pro and con list, and the con list was a lot longer on why not to do this. The pro list was like, I just keep feeling like I'm being called to do this and I need to do it. And I jumped in, and that the success I had on that side of things prepared me to do something even far different when I went into higher ed. I would have been probably scared to death to get outside my comfort zone to that level had I not had success on the other.
Well, I'm reminded of another Ohio State person, Jim Tressel. Jim Tressel went from being a well-respected football coach to actually a president of a university, and now he's lieutenant governor of Ohio. I'm sure that he did not envision either of those things happening when he was calling plays against Michigan or Penn State or calling plays on Saturday afternoons.
Yeah, so he and I got to know each other when he was Youngstown State president. I was finance chair because they were requesting money. So we became friends. He recently came down to visit Grande. Now that he's lieutenant governor. And he started out by saying, in front of the crowd, you and I have kind of switched roles. I was in higher ed and went to politics, and you were in politics and went to higher ed. And I said, I know. And it sounds like I'm going to be the next coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes at the rate we're going. So I thought it was a fun moment. But life's an adventure. You never know where it'll take you.
Well, if you're going to be the Ohio State football coach, you may have to figure out how to beat that team up north.
This is true. I don't know how successful I would be. I would have a wide open offense and have a whole lot of fun. But at the rate they get paid, I don't think I'd have to be there very long to make it work.
Well, it would be tough because you'd have to put your money where your mouth was with all that Monday morning quarterback or armchair quarterback type stuff.
It's bad at Ohio State, and I'm probably one of those, so I shouldn't say any more.
Yeah, it's always easier. It's always easier to coach a team from the sidelines or coach a team from at home on your couch.
Without question.
Well, we're talking about politics and don't want to get into, people can Google this or people can check this out. But toward the end of your term as in the state house, you were the speaker of the house, and essentially it didn't end well for you in terms of, there was a vote, you kind of got ousted, and it was obviously, in retrospect, it was definitely kind of some shady, some dirty stuff, almost like what we would think about with politics. I don't want to dwell on that, but I want to talk about, we've all been in a place where maybe we've been betrayed, or maybe something hasn't gone the way we wanted, or maybe we've been fired from a job. We talk about coaching. Coaches are fired all the time. What did you learn from going through that, where it really wasn't something that was your fault? It really wasn't something that you maybe could have foreseen or whatever, but how did you learn from that? And what advice would you have for people that go through a situation where they feel like something was against them, they were the victim, or it didn't go the way they wanted, major adversity or a major setback?
Yeah, it was quite a time. It really was. And as it turned out, it kind of, history showed that I was on the right side, and I felt really good about that. And matter of fact, when people say politics is an ugly business, I had a choice to make there. The other side that was pushing it kind of offered me deals and basically said, we'll let you do this. We'll let you be speaker for a year. You can turn it over to the other guy, but I'd be selling out my team. that was with me. And for me, it was like my integrity was more important than that.
Yeah.
Having said that, the next day I felt like everybody does after you lose what at that moment felt like the biggest position you've ever had. And I thought, is the sun going to come up? And, one of my favorite quotes is Muhammad Ali's, like, you don't lose when you get knocked down. You lose when you don't get back up. I spent 9 months after that with him in leadership, and I didn't get treated very well. My district was being ignored because I was the bad guy. And that's part of what led me out of there and to here. So I feel like through that darkest time, God had a hand in bringing me exactly where he needed me to be. I'm 5 miles from my house. I spend far more time with my family. I get to watch my youngest grow up, and I sacrificed a lot of that along the way. It's cliche that, every time a door closes, another one opens, but that's been my experience. And, I wouldn't change it. It was a very hard situation, but I wouldn't change it if I had to go back and do it over again.
Yeah. I think it's not something where we go through life just seeing rainbows and butterflies all the time and being like, man, I can't wait for something bad to happen, so something good will come of it. But I think time and time again, we get hit, we get hit like we're in a battle with Muhammad Ali or whatever. We keep getting hit. And we think that there's nothing that can come of this that's good. We just get so mired down in the muck and the mud. But good things can come of it. You're at Rio Grande now. You're impacting so many lives now, and that may not have come about if you hadn't gone through this situation.
Yeah, I mean, without question. And I share my story with people that are struggling and going through things all the time, because it's kind of nice when you're in that situation and somebody points to it. Yeah, I know how you feel, but look, this gets better and you'll get better and be better off for it. But, you don't appreciate the mountaintops if you haven't been through the valleys. So.
Yeah. I talk all the time to coaches or athletic directors. When I got fired early on in my career, just 2 years after being coach of the year, and my mentor told me, this is your opportunity to be bitter or better. And you're going to be a better person or a bitter person 5 years down the road because of the choices you make now, responding to this adversity or whatever's happened to you. And so we can always take, you can't always control those things that happen, but you can control how you respond to those oftentimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still struggle with that. If I go through something, we just finished up a budget here in Ohio that I didn't feel like I came out the way I should have. And I always give myself a little bit of grace to give myself some time to be bitter, but then say, okay, we're moving on, right? That's not going to get us anywhere. So I got my frustration out, and it's I heard Jelly Roll say the other day, the windshield is a lot bigger than the rear view mirror. And I thought, I've never heard that quote before. That's awesome.
Did not have Jelly Roll being quoted by a college president on my bingo card today. But
you talk about a guy that's been through a lot. Oh my gosh.
I appreciate that. All right. So you're a man of the people. You know who Jelly Roll is. What's something else that we would need to know about a college president that you would surprise us? Because we think of a college president as this bow tie wearing, or this really, really educated person stuck up, sitting in an ivory tower. Give us one more thing about you that would surprise us.
Well, I think most people, because of the way I dress, wouldn't understand that my favorite thing to do outside of spending time with my family is deer hunting. I love to hunt, and I love to fish. But probably the one thing, and maybe this is a reflection on when you're in politics, you're kind of constrained because you can't do anything crazy. I started this in the pandemic because kids were so bound up, right? I mean, they had all this energy that they couldn't get rid of. And I started wearing these crazy suits like that David Pumpkin suit from Halloween that Tom Hanks wore. I have one of those. I wear it every Halloween. I mean, just, Shamrock suit on St. Patrick's Day. I mean, just crazy stuff. And the students tend to relate then, right? If you're self-deprecating, it makes you more relatable to them. and they enjoy that. I try to have relationships with my students from the standpoint of I try to know them by name, where they're from, what they're studying. And it's harder as our campus has grown. But the on-campus students, it's easier because I see them more frequently. And that to me is where it's all at. It's fulfilling for me.
Well, I think you touched upon something right there. I mean, whether you're coaching a team of 10 people or a president of a university, or even a representative, a politician, making that connection with people will go so far. Will go so far in moving them to where they need to be, and helping them grow, and they'll listen to you a little bit more if they feel like you care.
Without question. And I've learned that over the years from some great leaders. And when I was in politics, I was around some really impressive people that have accomplished amazing things. And one of them, I remember walking through his organization, and he called everybody by their name. And I mean, from the doorman to just everybody. And I was blown away. So I have made it a point usually to try to get to know everybody, at least know their name. I ask them about their family, because family is important to me. We talk about the Rio family. We celebrate together. We mourn together, everything that happens. And then, try to find some common ground, right? I mean, they like sports, who they cheer for, something to have a conversation about along the way. And I think it makes, again, more relatable, and people feel like they can talk to you.
Well, we oftentimes want to put leaders up on a pedestal. We think that they should be perfect. Unfortunately, leaders are people, so they're not perfect. What mistakes do you see leaders make? And if you want to go to confessional, you can, and let us know what a mistake is you've made in the past and what you learned from that. But just mistakes in general that a leader would make that maybe you can share with us, that the listeners may think twice about, or maybe they haven't seen that perspective before.
Well, the one thing I'm constantly reminding myself of is just to stay humble, because what I've seen is as people rise up and get into more important positions, it's easy to be just have an ego, right? And not listen. And for me, early on when I graduated college, my dad thought it would be a good idea for me to take the Dale Carnegie class, and I read the How to Win Friends and Influence People. That probably had as big an impact on me as anything, because it taught me how to listen. And I think that is such a huge thing. So I have made the mistake before of jumping in and jumping to a conclusion and not asking enough questions and giving people the benefit of the doubt. And you really feel like a jerk after you do that. And I always think of, especially in today's world, like Robin Williams' quote of everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about. There's probably something else going on in their life that maybe if you ask them about, you could uncover, and you could start to make some progress. So I've definitely made those mistakes, but the Bible's pretty clear about it'll humble the exalted and exalt the humbled. And I always try to remember that and stay on the humble side.
Well, that's great advice. We appreciate your time. We appreciate all that you're doing there at Rio Grande, both with the community college and with the university, and keep up the good work. It's a battle out there every day. You have to intentionally fight for your culture, fight for growth and development. It doesn't just happen accidentally. So we appreciate your time and all that you do.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And for those of you, share this show. I think it's good, obviously, if you have someone in higher education or academics that might be interested in this, feel free to share this, but I think this is good for any leaders. So feel free to share this. Go ahead and, as they say, smash that like button if you want, or just tap it so that you don't break your phone. But until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?